go through guilt and shame. Well, Uncle Robert's almost perfect, and he keeps pointing out my flaws, which of course he's true. So I'm, worthless, and in order to improve myself and be closer to God, I need to keep listening to him. So the main thing is the secrecy and paranoia, and so they limit your interaction with other people.
Peter, you realize that you just pointed out about 40% of the businesses and the organizations and groups on social media.
You think?
like think about this for a second. There's always an enemy, and usually this enemy is innocuous. It's like, well, they're lazy. I don't know about you. Someone who sits around all day eating Doritos and watching Netflix might not be great for society. In no way, shape, or form impacts my life negatively. None. Yet they're the enemy. So there's this attribute. It's this non-defined them. And then there's something wrong with you. And then there's the leader who has all of these attributes and pointing to 97% of the people, where'd you even get that stat in the first place, are like this. But 3% of the people, meaning our people in our group, people like me, good people, we think this way, we believe this way. Oh, and then once you get into that group, you go to a retreat, you go to a seminar, it's not about education, it's about indoctrination. They're not teaching you skills. And part of that is, when you go back and you talk to your quote unquote average people who embrace mediocrity, they're not going to agree with you because they haven't gone through it. You got to get rid of those people because affiliation is the key to transformation. So you got to get in this group and cut yourself off from anyone who doesn't think like this, because their thinking is why they're so mediocre in the first place. And I look at that and I'm like, does anybody see a problem with this? And it's like everything you're describing resonates. And I think a lot more people are susceptible to this stuff than we might realize.
So excellent point. And here's how I would kind of piggyback on that, not so much answer or correct it, but kind of add to the discussion. A lady named Daniela Young, not related at all, wrote a really good memoir called Uncultured. She basically grew up in a really horrible sexual cult overseas, escaped, comes to America because she was actually an American citizen, and then joins the army. And she's in boot camp and she's like, did I just join another cult? And throughout her book, she kind of makes the point that no, she didn't. There's a difference between cult and a strong culture. You can have a really weird, strong, you name it, culture, but it's not a cult. So in essence, people then would ask me, well, were you guys evangelizing and trying to bring other people into this little cult? And the answer was no, it was tiny. It was like maybe 10 to 12 adults. So it was very much of, we're special because we have Uncle Robert. The rest of the world are swine. There's that biblical verse, don't throw your pearls before the swine. So everybody else was swine. So we're not going to waste our pearls on them. And we're going to maintain this tight secret group and be paranoid of everybody else. That's a cult. A strong culture, which may be really odd, will let people come and go. They may be, again, odd, but that's a strong culture. To me, that's not a cult. And I do believe there's a difference.
So you identified one point of differentiation. They let people come and go.
Yeah.
I happen to be a fan of strong cultures. I think people who heavily identify with a set of core values that gives them an affinity to one another, I think there's a lot of positives that come out of that.
Sure.
Where I draw the line is where everybody else is wrong and the guru on the stage is the person who has the answers. And you got to cut yourself off from people who disagree